everyone, it is me, Chef Masselva. In my video of today, I will be sharing with you my knowledge about the ethnography of communication in sociolinguistics, its definition and its explanation. So, let's take a look about it, guys. So first of all, we're gonna start by giving a brief definition of the ethnography of communication, and secondly, we're gonna show you the components of the ethnography of communication, and in the last part, we're gonna show you the methods of ethnography of communication. That's all. The introduction. You will certainly accept that understanding how language is used to do such tasks is more critical in our daily lives than the explanation and study of its vocabulary, grammar, phonology, or morphology. This concept is the focus of the ethnography of communication approach in anthropological linguistics. Languages and communities of speech do not exist in a vacuum. That is why, in the ethnographic study of speech, a practical perspective is required. We must see how language functions functionally rather than formally within culture. The form of language is the one that may vary in line with how rules change in daily communication. Ethnography is concerned with the identification and study of ethnic group speech, habits, and vocabulary. This technique can be traced back to the early 1960s works of Dale Hames and John Gompers. Hames in 1986 dismissed abstract study of language and grammar in favor of analysis of language in social context, which aids in explaining tribal and non-tribal cultures, custom, tradition, attitude, and speech. In this picture in front of you, it is Dale Hames, who is considered to be the father of the field of ethnography of communication. In 1962, he suggested ethnography of speaking as a method for studying how people spoke. Later, the name was changed to ethnography of communication to incorporate other symbolic ways of speech. According to Hames, the aim of communication ethnography is to identify patterns of language use that assist members of specific sociocultural communities in curating and reflecting their social world in specific contexts. For Saville Troik, he described ethnography of communication as the exploration and explication of the rules for contextually acceptable behavior in a society or collective, or what the person needs to know to be a functioning member of the community. To indicate which area of the culture one is more interested in studying, Hames suggested basic unit to examine the communication of specific culture. He proposed the following 6 units: speech community, speech situation, speech event, communicative act, communicative style, and the last one is way of speaking. So in the following video, I'm gonna try to explain each of these units by giving an example, definition, and a picture to illustrate the whole idea about this unit. The first one is a speech community. A speech community is a bunch of individuals who often use similar signals. They differ from other classes because they interact in a unique manner. They share similar ideas, use, and norms of language. A speech culture, according to Hames in 1972, is made up of individuals who follow the same laws about when and how to say. For example, in the first picture, we have people who ride skateboard. They are people who often wear the same clothes and act the same way. And in the second example, we have users of particular websites. The second one is speech situation. For Hames, in 1972, in his second unit, the speech situation exists within a speech community. You may find a speech state by observing when people speak or do not speak. For example, in a train trip or a school classes are two examples for Seville Troik 1982. In the third unit, we have speech events. For Hames, in 1974, a speech event has a beginning and end. It also refers to activities that are governed by rules or norms for speech. For example, in the first picture, we have a party as a speech situation and a conversation at the party as a speech event. In the second example, we have a picture of women who wear traditional clothes. Here, it is the celebration of Yahia throughout Algeria by reviving ancestral tradition. The fourth one is the communicative act. A communicative act is an expressive action that includes a gesture, vocalization, or verbalization that we use to perform some sort of linguistic action or function in communication. For example, we use language to apologize, request, compliment, invite, refuse, greet, and complain. In the first picture, we have two women. The first one is requesting the price of an item. In the second picture, we have a man who is paying for the groceries. The fifth unit is the communicative style. It refers about how someone normally talks. Someone's tendency to talk in a certain way may be defined as a characteristics. Patterns of speech may also reveal a person's personality. For certain women, the use of trouble talk becomes their defining communicative form. In the first example, we have a picture of using sarcasm in conversation. And in the second picture, we have a couple and they are maintaining eye contact, which is a communicative style. The last one is way of speaking. It refers to expression that is not inherently included within one of the other units. Way of speaking can refer to different types of speech that can be used in different contexts and events. It may also be used to identify the speech patterns that are unique to a society. For example, answering a telephone in Spanish can be considered a way of speaking. So, according to Hames, the starting point is the ethnographic study of a community context behavior. Communication behavior refers to what people do when they interact with one another. I hope that the previous lesson was so clear, because now we're gonna move to the components of ethnography of communication. To examine using this methodology or theory, Hames created the speaking model, which is a framework for analyzing a speech event in its cultural context. What this framework shows us is that language and culture are related and they cannot be separated. We will look at the acronym SPEAKING and what each of those letters stand for, as well as why it will help you become more successful at speaking. What this framework will highlight is that there is no one-size-fits-all for communication, and the whole idea of communication is that it is changeable, that will vary according to a number of things. So let's get into it and see what those number of things are. The letter S represents setting and sen. This just means the actual physical location where the conversation or speech act takes place. Where does the conversation or communication take place? Are you at a coffee shop? Are you in a boardroom? Are you on a stage? Are you on the phone talking to your mother? For example, we have many locations: campus, school, home, or boarding house. We have so many examples and location. The letter P is for participants, the people who are speaking. Who are the individuals with whom you are conversing? What are the interlocutor names? Are you addressing an audience? If so, who is the intended audience? What is the audience demographic? What are their passions? These are all critical questions that will help us choose how we will interact with the participants. For example, we have lecturer, students, friends, family members, and etc. The letter E is for ends. Here we have a brief definition, which is mean the purpose or reason of the speaking. Ends mean the purpose of the conversation or the speech act being performed. What is the reason behind engaging in conversation? What is the reason for communicating? And it is really important to understand that because it will make the reason you are communicating so much clearer and it will make your message that much stronger. For example, what message do you want to get across? Are you trying to persuade someone? Are you trying to give information to someone? A is for act sequence. This means the speech acts and the order in which they are presented to the speaker. Different speech acts include apologizing, inviting someone somewhere, greeting, request, assertion, orders, question, etc. How is the speech act performed? Before making the request, do you say hello? And we have example, promising, warning, or directing. Here we have the letter K for key. This refers to the manner in which the speaker speaks, the tone of voice you use, the inflection patterns, the prosody or intonation, the method in which you convey the message or the style. For example, whether the person serious or joking, sincere or ironic. The letter I for instrumentalities. It is the mode of communication used. Instruments or instrumentalities refers to the manner of communication employed and what language variety is selected from the participants' repertoire. For example, you're on the phone, aren't you? Are you communicating by text message? Are you, for example, broadcasting a message at an office? Are you performing on stage? The letter N for norms. Here it is the social rules of what is proper in conversation. This is the norms of conversation. So this is important in that you have to understand the culture in which you are communicating. Those rules are really important because they are the social rules that govern communication, and it is really important to respect these rules and adhere to these norms because that is how you can effectively engage with people within that group, within that speech community, within that country, within that culture. And we need to know what the norms for proper appropriate conversation is within it. And here we have the last letter, which is the letter G, which stands for genre. As a result, there are several forms of communication. For example, you may be cracking a joke, gossiping, sharing a story. Perhaps it is a dialogue, and these are also influenced by culture. Various civilizations have different approaches to humor. There are several forms of joke in different cultures. Is satire employed? Is it okay to gossip? So once again, language and culture, their linked nature, come into play. We cannot and should not separate them. That is the allure of cross-cultural dialogue and communication in general. In conclusion, the speaking model developed by Delhaims is not only useful for navigating cross-cultural conversations and therefore boosting our communicative skill in a given language, but it is also a terrific tool for facilitating our capacity to speak out in any social situation. We can face every communication event or speech act and become more successful communicators by leveraging the speaking framework. I have finished with the speaking model, but now the question is, why is ethnography of communication so important? We're gonna see now. Why is ethnography of communication important? An opening goal of ethnography of communication was to shape interviewing in culturally appropriate ways and to demonstrate that a cultural system of communicative activity needed to be explored before interviewing could be productively conducted. So this is the importance of the ethnography of communication. So guys, we are at the end of this video. I hope that you like it and you appreciate my interpretation. And see you next time for maybe a new lesson. Who knows? Ciao!